Ade-Ajayi, who are also unavoidably absent, attending to other university matters outside Nigeria. The Registrar and Secretary to Council, Ade-Ajayi, Esquire. The Bursar, Dr. Leko Lawal. The University Librarian, Professor Yetunde Zaid. The Provost College of Medicine, Professor David Wale Oke. Dean Faculty of Social Sciences, Professor Olufemi Bamneke. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen of the press, it is with immense pleasure that I welcome you all to the 17th inaugural lecture of the University of Lagos in the 2019-2020 academic session, titled Rethinking the Development Process in Nigeria, a Choice Between Lamborghini and ÀJÀGBE-EJޮ. ÀJÀGBE-EJޮ. The inaugural lecturer for today is Professor Olufemi SAIBU of the Department of Economics, Faculty of Social Sciences. Professor Olufemi Muibi SAIBU was born on September 15, 1972 in Ilobu, Irekwodu, local government area of Osun State. He began his education with the Baptist Day Primary School, Ogbada, Surulere local government area of Oyo State, and later moved to Local Authority Primary School and Isiu Grammar School, Isiu in Ikorodu North Local Development Area of Lagos State. After he successfully passed his West African School Certificate examination at the sitting in 1987 as the overall best student in the school, he proceeded to Osun State College of Education, Ilesha, where he studied economics education and graduated with distinction in mathematics. Credit in economics, and was the overall best student in economics mathematics combination in 1992. In furtherance of his academic pursuits, he gained admission into Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, in 1994 for his 2-year degree program in economics with education, and graduated with second-class upper division, slightly missing first-class honors, with a cumulative GPA of 4.42. Also at the NCE level, he won the faculty prize as a student with overall best performance in the Faculty of Education in 1995-96 graduating set. Upon graduation, he went for his mandatory National Youth Service program at Government Technical College, Bukuru in Plateau State, Nigeria. In the 1997-98 academic session, he enrolled for his master's degree in economics and graduated in 2001 with distinction in a record time of 2 years. Above all, he obtained his Doctor of Philosophy, PhD in Economics in 2006 with a thesis titled Openness and the Effects of Fiscal and Monetary Policies on Real Output in Nigeria 1960 to 2003, which won him a $10,000 US PhD research fellowship grant from the African Economic Research Consortium, Kenya, in 2005. Professor SAIBU's academic and research career started as a graduate assistant with Olufemi University in 2001, and he rose to the position of senior lecturer in 2007. He left Olufemi University, Ile-Ife, and joined the services of the University of Lagos in 2011. His outstanding academic achievements and scholarly contribution provided him the opportunity of a postdoctoral research fellowship between 2012 and 2013 at the University of Johannesburg, South Africa, and also his promotion to associate professor and full professor of economics in 2012 and 2016, respectively. He has lectured several economics courses, both at the graduate and postgraduate levels, and has supervised many research projects. His research interests focuses on how macroeconomic policies can be used to enhance small private enterprise incubation and mainstream informal economy, promote employment, enhance growth, as well as redress poverty and inequality. He has over 70 publications in book chapters and peer-reviewed journals. Participated in several conferences and facilitated so many workshops and seminars across the globe. He has been the lead presenter and keynote speaker in a couple of academic, government, and corporate gatherings. Professor SAIBU has successfully supervised to his credit 7 PhD candidates, while 4 other candidates are at the different stages of thesis writing. Presently, he is a member of the editorial board of 12 national and international journals, an external examiner for PhD and professorial promotion assessment for more than 30 universities in Nigeria, South Africa, and the Gambia. He has worked jointly with others to win and execute several research grants worth millions of dollars with national and international agencies. He is a member of notable local and international societies, namely Nigerian Economic Society, Economic Society of South Africa, Chinese Economic Society, African Study Group, Development Studies Association, United Kingdom, the International Econometric Society, African Econometric Society, amongst many others. He is currently the Pioneer Director of Institute of Nigeria China Development Studies. Professor SAIBU is happily married to Alaja, Mrs. Bolanle SAIBU, and is blessed with children. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to invite Professor Olufemi Muibi SAIBU to present his inaugural lecture.
The Deputy Chancellor, Academic and Research, the Deputy Chancellor, Management Services, the Deputy Chancellor, Development Services, the registrar, the bursar, the university librarian, the provost college of medicine, the dean, faculty of social sciences, the deans of other faculties, distinguished members of the university senate, the head of department of economics, heads of other departments, directors and head of units, other principal officers of the university, your lordship, spiritual and temporal, your royal highness and majesty, distinguished academics and professional colleagues, distinguished non-teaching staff, administrative and technical, family members, representatives of professional associations, friends, dear students past and present, gentlemen of the press, print and media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. With all sense of humility, Mr. President, and gratitude to Almighty God, I stand here today to deliver the 17th inaugural lecture series for the 2019-2020 session and the 6th from the Department of Economics since inception in 1962. Mr. President, I feel greatly honored for your kind approval and the privilege to stand before my learned colleagues and distinguished audience to deliver this inaugural lecture titled Rethinking the Development Process in Nigeria, a choice between Lamborghini and ÀJÀGBE-EJޮ. I'm deeply honored and humbled by the presence of everyone here and those who have joined virtually to be part of this event. I treasure this privilege and honor. Mr. President, I'm sure many people will ask, why this topic? Why the choice between Lamborghini and ÀJÀGBE-EJޮ? Mr. President, I seek your indulgence to start this clarification from some occurrences in my personal life. I equally want to tender unreserved apology to my family and relatives if the narrative puts you in an uncomfortable position. I respect your privacy and dignity, and I always prefer to keep my family and personal life out of public glare. But the extent of this presentation has constrained me to digress from this established convention. I was born a child of circumstance. My mother was to marry the love of her life, when my grandfather discreetly changed that choice. My grandfather, from a spiritual perspective, advised my mother to marry his friend, an Islamic cleric, a scholar, older, and less affluent than the love of life of my mother. My mother was confronted with two choices: to follow her instinct or the wisdom of her father. But she chose to follow the wisdom of her father. The second event was when my mother lost her husband and was again confronted with the choice to leave the family and remarry. The choice was to follow tradition and marry a younger brother to her husband, or leave the family entirely to marry into another. For the sake of her two young children then, she chose the tradition as against her personal gains. That choice of staying gave birth to me as the third born of my mother, but the first child of what we call Oko widow. I'm a child of Oko. Only my mom would have been the beneficiary if she had left and remarried. But by staying, she used indigenous traditional ingenuity to save and secure greater prosperity for her young children. I'm here today because my mother chose to sacrifice her personal comfort and consent and a choice between her children's development and freedom to express her love for life. The third incident in my life is my education. The decision of Lagos State government to adopt universal free education in 1980 was the saving grace that allow me to be educated today. Using a large poultry-like building for classes, which I call ÀJÀGBE-EJޮ building, instead of a small luxury furnished building, which I call Lamborghini for education, to address challenges faced in the education sector, became the saving grace for millions of indigent children like me. The government chose between luxury and so-called qualitative education for a few privileged elites and mass education for the large, less privileged citizens with the philosophy, a little for all is better than much for a few. That single decision by my mother and that decision by the government of Lagos State made thousands of people and several families to enjoy considerable fortune today. More importantly, it has offered a teeming population of the poor and less privileged to develop their potentials and become captains of industries and accomplished scholars in academics, and it also gave birth to today's presentation and presenter. From these three scenarios, it is obvious the direction of my presentation. In all these three cases, my mother and the government have chosen ÀJÀGBE-EJޮ instead of Lamborghini. When the best is not accessible, the available can be made to be best affordable. How does this Lamborghini and ÀJÀGBE-EJޮ relate to my discipline, economics? I explain what the ÀJÀGBE-EJޮ is like and Lamborghini. Lamborghini is a sports small car designed to taste as a luxury car for affluence, speed, convenience, and comfort. It is sensitive to the environment and operates under a well-defined condition. The owners and driver lack knowledge of how it works. They only drive and enjoy it. Can only operate it as prescribed by manual from the manufacturer, while deviation is costly and could be catastrophic. What of ÀJÀGBE-EJޮ? àJàgbé-EJޮ, in the other hand, is that unconventional long vehicle and truck developed, designed for ruggedness that can be modified to carry goods and passengers exclusively or a mixture of the two. The only components supplied by the manufacturer are the engines, chassis, and frame. The users build the body themselves. They adjust, adapt the mechanical and electrical workings to suit the environment and purpose for which you want to use it. They use it to build Muibi, to build Agbègbè-Lodò, to build Bọ́ọ̀lù-Ẹ̀kájà. These are the possibilities that you can do with àJàgbé-EJޮ, but not with Lamborghini. When damaged, the vehicle's parts can be repaired, fabricated, replaced entirely with alternatives with little modifications. Therefore, it's sustainable and amenable. The continuous adaptations and modifications usually leads to improvement and self-discovery towards the development of locally made vehicles which are more resilient and adaptable to local environments. Therefore, a new partnership may develop which allow local manufacturers to buy only essential parts and creating opportunity for development of homegrown or Bokun. That's luxurious boss that we're used to. Now, how do I break this through to pure economy? And that's the next stage I want to explain. Lamborghini and àJàgbé-EJޮ concepts are just metaphors that resonate beyond automobiles. They represent all the choices that we make over our wants, which is luxury, and needs, which is necessity. And these needs are the ones that determine our survival. Nigerians as decision makers and government as policymakers engage in economic decisions that have semblance of these metaphors. Nigeria not only depends on foreign goods and services, but also on policies and programs. Therefore, Lamborghini represents those received standardized conventional development models and policy prescriptions developed based on socio-economic environment that's glaringly different from the countries where they are used and practiced. In contrast, Ade-Ajayi represents homegrown policies, planned programs that involve true participation of users and owners directly from conceptualization, design, and implementation. It uses local resources endowment that sufficiently allow learning by doing and capacity building. Though the outcomes may not be perfect, it usually meets the needs and aspirations of the people based on capacity of the locals. When issues arise, they are easily resolved, corrected. It usually involves some pain and discomfort, but because users and beneficiaries are involved and are carried along, they are ready to bear the pains to enjoy the gains. Indeed, Nigeria resource cost is not much of the oil, but with our choice between Lamborghini and Ade-Ajayi, where the excessive access to foreign goods, programs, opportunities has undermined the development of local initiatives and constrained the deployment of our cooperative advantage and enhancement of our local productivity. It is really ironic that the more we have of these foreign goods policies as well, the worse we have in terms of well-being and economic viability. Nigeria's sustenance and economic survival are threatened with excessive exposure and dependence on foreign at the expense of our local resourcefulness and endowment. This is the greatest obstacle to our development than any other socio-economic issues often emphasized by policymakers and analysts. Theoretical background to Ade-Ajayi and Lamborghini. Mr. President, it is important to put some theoretical perspectives to this Lamborghini and Ade-Ajayi. Obviously, it is settled in the literature that economic growth is only a necessary but never a sufficient condition for development. However, the developed countries were able to quickly translate economic growth to development, and hence their recommendation of same approach to developing countries without considering the difference in our circumstances. These recommendations were based on two opposing perspectives: those who support market and private sectors to drive the economic development, and those who believe the state, that is the government, must be the one to develop the economy. The linear state growth theory is one of those theories who believe the private sectors and the market should be the one to drive the economy. And they argue that the only problem that the developed country is having is lack of capital, that if they can accumulate enough capital and then deploy it for production, they will grow and develop. And there is a smooth transition from growth to development. And they argued that if they don't have sufficient capital, then they should borrow from overseas and they should allow foreigners to invest in their country, and therefore they will develop. And they recommended between 15 to 20% of their GDP as conditions for them to achieve this growth. On the other hand, the structural change theory argues that the problem of developing countries is never issue of capital, and it's never the issue of maybe borrowing money from overseas, but the lack of deploying what they have by themselves in solving their problem. That developing countries have in excess labor, which are cheap and can do the same thing which machines can do. Therefore, they should deploy the excess labor and then adopt labor-intensive production to achieve the same goal that will be achieved by importing machines. And they argue that unless developing countries stop this excessive trading with developed countries, they will never grow. Rather, they should trade with themselves and produce what they need locally. The international dependence theory argued that the problem of developed countries is never because of surplus labor or deficient capital, but because by history we were colonized and therefore we are not allowed to operate freely as we are. That many of the policies that we implement in developing countries were imported, and therefore they are not relevant to our environment, and therefore they do more damage to our economy than it's supposed to be. And more importantly, that when they buy raw materials from us at a very cheap rate, they sell to us back manufactured goods at the most expensive price, and therefore our industry is never balanced and it's not fair. Unless we address these imbalances, There's nothing developing countries can do if we never develop. Because of this strong argument by the socialists and then this state growth theory, the capitalists again came up and argued that the problem of developing countries is not because of predatory activities of developed and the agency they control, but rather because of heavy hand of the state and corruption, inefficiency, lack of economic incentives that permit the economies of developing countries. They then advocate free market and these economies where everybody does whatever he likes and the government plays very limited role. To put this argument further, then they recommended 10 reform policies that all African countries must adopt and adapt to, irrespective of their conditions. And these 10 policies is called the Washington Consensus. 3 of these policies is stabilization, privatization, and liberalization, where we are asked to downsize our government size. Number 2, to open our economy to the foreign countries. And number 3, for government to sell all their enterprises. Having done this and practiced for several years, what then do we have? And according to their principles, we are asked to adopt the same policies, the same practices, irrespective of difference in the countries. And the picture here illustrates this better. This one. And according to that, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. They're asking elephant to climb the tree, asking goat to climb the tree, dog to climb the tree. Automatically, we know that cannot operate. That's exactly the kind of policies they introduce to the developed countries. They ask us to practice same policies when our economic realities, political settings, social settings are never the same. Therefore, those policies can never work. And what is the outcome? The outcome is illustrated in the second picture, where it is titled the structural adjusted last supper, where the leader asks the chicken and every food and asks and the others to only live by bread and water alone. And that exactly shows the consequences of these foreign policies and programs. These policies, therefore, that was passed to improve the gains from structuralism, at best controversial, and indeed aggravated the crisis in developing countries, and it led many developed countries from crisis to mastery, and they become poorer than the way they were before implementing the policy. What then do other countries do? The developed countries that successfully accelerated their growth and closed the gap with developed countries did not follow these exact approaches. And a good example is China, which retained governments and supported local industries with preferential access to subsidized credit, at the same time allowing private enterprises, including the joint ventures, to enter into competition in many sectors with the government enterprises. The government enters in tripartite business negotiation with large multinational corporations to engage in production sharing in China. This approach was once asserted to be the worst possible transition strategy, one that will invite rent-seeking and corruption and result in unavoidable economic collapses. However, instead of collapsing, China has remained the most dynamic economy over the past 4 decades. Gradually, Chinese economy has moved close to becoming a full-fledged market economy, while simultaneously achieving the Pareto improving result of reform without losses. What is the case with Nigeria? Mr. President, Nigeria had developed, executed 20 different development plans based on these principles between 1945 and 1985. Before independence, there were 2. The 10-year development plan from 1945 to 1955 and the one from 55 to 60. During that period, the focus was how to ensure that the building infrastructure that will allow African resources to be moved to Europe and then to bring back construction. And again, how they can communicate results by teaching us only English, not technology, not science. then happened in post-independence? We have a different policy or program. After post-independence, the Nigerian government implemented five-year development plans, 1965 to 1985. And also, after 1985, the social development program became the order of the day in development countries. And Nigeria changed from fixed 5 years to 3 rolling plans, and also executed 5 rolling plans from 1980 to 1989. When rolling plans failed again, Nigeria now changed from plans to policies and programs. And we also implemented another 7 policies and programs. Today, last week, the federal government again announced another 5-year development plan from 2021 to 2025. Mr. President, despite these plans and programs, the current economic reality in Nigeria, which we all know, and the macroeconomic indicators suggest that external development strategies have failed and have never achieved desired results. We cannot continue to do the same thing forever and expect to change the result. We need to build our new model, a new perspective that can blend the two contending perspectives and produce a better alternative. This alternative may be unconventional, like the Rwanda Development Plan, China Development Plan, Singapore. We need to develop a Nigeria development model that makes us to use our endowment and address our local problems locally. That broke the barriers of underdevelopment. Number one, we need to identify the list of tradable goods, that is, the goods that we usually buy from overseas, that has been produced by those countries that we normally import from for at least over 20 years. And again, with those countries that we share similar endowment with, and those countries that at least have at least doubles of our per capita income. Number two, among those industries that we identify in number one, the government should give priorities to those which some domestic private firms have already entered simultaneously, and try to identify the obstacles that are preventing these firms from upgrading the quality of their products, or the barriers that are limiting others from entering into this industry. Number three, some of those industries in the list will be completely new to domestic firms. The government could adopt specific measures to encourage firms in higher income countries identified in the first place to invest in this industry. Number four, government should pay close attention to successful self-discovery, private, and provide support to scale up their industry. Number five, given the state of infrastructure and unfriendly environment business in Nigeria, the government should invest more in industrial parks, not to leave it to private sector, and make the necessary improvements to attract domestic firms and foreign firms that may be willing to invest in this targeted industry. And number six, the government should also provide limited incentives to domestic pioneer firms or foreign investors that work within the list of industries identified in step one, and to compensate for the non-rival public knowledge created through this investment. And number seven, among that industry in the list, the government should give priorities to those firms producing goods that cover the bulk of our import bill and generate a certain proportion of our country trade imbalances by encouraging production sharing and local assembly, and the country, Nigeria, be placed at the end of this global chain of such products in order to domesticate employment and income. Mr. President, using this approach and strategy fits completely into the concept of ÀJàGBE-EJޮ approach to development process. That's my contribution to knowledge. Mr. President, my research interests and publications have been in development, macroeconomics, and finance, focusing on the role of government and financial institutions in stimulating sustainable development and creating opportunities that can make Nigeria competitive in global markets. In my publication, I've struck a balance and do ensure that I have a sufficient paper in both ＡJAGBE-EJޮ and Lamborghini journal. As of today, I have over 70 publications in book chapters, peer-reviewed journals, and these publications are classified into 5 subheadings. I've attended several conferences, facilitated many workshops. I've been lead presenters, keynote speakers in academic, government, and public graduates. These presentations have taken me to several countries and national institutions across the globe. All these interactions have influenced my thoughts about rethinking development process in Nigeria and the need to domesticate development and democratize the process of development using AJAGBE-EJØ models. I'm eternally grateful for the opportunity to serve in University of Lagos. Currently, I'm the director of the Institute of Nigerian China Development Studies, and also I'm a member of the academic board of the University of Lagos. I also serve as the committee that implements the establishment of microfinance bank in the University of Lagos. I'm the chairman of the technical committee that unfolds the UNIDO, and also currently I'm a member of the University of Lagos Quality Assurance and Service Com, and also the chairman of the Faculty of Social Sciences Committee. I've worked with some others to develop curriculum, and currently I'm the chairman of Faculty of Social Sciences Curriculum Development and Department of Economic Curriculum Development, because I specialize in curriculum because I study education at SC and undergraduate. As part of this conclusion, I've worked with other colleagues from other departments to develop 2 other programs. I work with people from accounting and law to develop the programs in taxation. And also work with other colleagues again to develop a postgraduate program in Islamic finance. Through this, we have been able to make first university in Nigeria, federal university in Nigeria, to have programs in taxation and also to have programs in alternative finance. In terms of public engagement, have worked with several bodies and organizations, and indeed, I have supervised PhD candidates and again examined PhD candidates across universities in Africa. And also, the newly announced development plan, I was member of the committee that drafted the initial report. Currently, I'm working with some other consultants to develop a state development plan for your state and others also on the front line. I'm also a member of 12 professional advisory bodies, and also currently I'm also a member of the Chartered Institute of Taxation and Chartered Institute of Stockbroker. And recently, I also appointed as a research fellow of Nigeria Economic Summit as well. For the glory of God, I now shown to the family economists and investors of Lagos. I've been able to supervise 7 PhD candidates, for which 2 of them won the best thesis in University of Lagos. Now my recommendation. Mr. Professor, adopting AJAGBE-EJØ approach and adopting 7 inclusive growth adaptation framework, which I earlier explained, we need us to be able to move from the current situation we have. And therefore, I have some suggestions on how we can adopt this method and achieve the goals of having a Nigerian development plan that will be owned by Nigeria. Number 1, we need to harness our area of cooperative advantage. Effort should be made to identify the country's area of cooperative advantage, which is already known to all. A remarkable feat can be achieved with government support to ensure that the buy-in of the private sector. Number 2, we need to adopt and adapt to labor-intensive technology. The AJAGBE-EJØ required in this context is the need to ensure that youth are duly employed. Hence, choosing labor-intensive over labor reduction approach is a must for Nigeria and its critical time. Copying the advanced countries by adopting labor reduction Lamborghini robotic production system is in Nigeria industry may end up to be a silent time bomb. As we can see in this up here, this over 1 million people applying for immigration employment in 2014. Why would the country that has such youth unemployed now be promoting robotics that will now be doing the work of millions of people when we have thousands of people not engaged? I think what we need in Nigeria is not how to adopt the latest technology in the world. We have to adopt technology that employ, engage the mass youth who we have as a cheap labor and social labor. Anything otherwise will work into conditions that we have. Building landscape against small-scale industry that can absorb surplus labor, which are relatively cheaper and socially and politically expedient, is the only way to get out of this type of no amount of reskilling or capacity building will turn these millions of Nigeria into robot builders. Global manufacturing goods, yet they consume a considerable size of finished products from overseas. Instead of starting with trade integration through African Continental Free Trade Agreement, an African Continental Production Sharing Agreement of essential manufactured goods that constitute the bulk of African trade deficit as the starting point before trading agreements will have been a better strategy. No country in the world can export what it has not produced and gain from that trade. The danger in furthering opening Nigerian economy at a time when developed countries who are promoting this trade integration are using all forms of restrictions to protect their economy and engaging in economic nationalism requires careful analysis and further review. Then adopting private-public partnership instead of public-private partnership. The government should adopt private-public partnership, not the existing practice of public-private partnership. What is the difference? The difference between the two is that the private-public partnership requires public to provide the funding and private provide expertise. An error in the existing approach of public-private partnership strategy is to ask the public sector to put in place necessary laws and institutions while the private sector supply the funds for financing public goods and infrastructure. Mr. President, this method has failed, and as you can see, to achieve the economic and social welfare objectives of PPP, because private funds cannot and will never be used to provide public goods. When such is done, the public goods becomes private goods with all the attributes of private goods, such as restriction of access because of cost and price, higher research cost, lower quantity in order to maximize their profit and rent-seeking behavior, and therefore a judgment of public welfare. As you can see, we have more private universities in Nigeria than public universities. Then what is capacity of people to go to university? Why is it that the public universities are still having a very large number of demand and private universities are not having students? It's purely because education is a public good. And when you sell it to private schools, the private agencies, they will provide a full quality. We have so many universities, they have a high number of people who are looking for universities, and they will need to do everything. The problem of public sector is never funding. Government can, if so wish, and committed to raise funds for its project, and has always done that. But what may be lacking is expertise and technical skills to design, to build, to operate, to manage the project. Therefore, partnership with the private sector should be for technical skills and expertise provision rather than funding. The current Lamborghini PPP has made best of many well-intended public-private projects and led to significant loss in funds and so welfare. Technology adoption and promotion. The current government intervention and support for SME need careful analysis as well. The existing support system is more of consumption that enhances trade and funding the transfer of income and employment to overseas. Despite all the areas of financial intervention by the government, none is directed at startups or financing inventions, research in developing of new products that can be produced on large scale in the country. The government needs to take the risk and build trust and confidence in private sector by funding startup and innovation, research and development that may not bring immediate political gains with sustainable long-term economic development dividend to the populace. We need to change our IT from information technology to industrial technology. Funding of entrepreneurs to focus on those who can produce goods locally and not those who only eat trees by serving fund transfer only. And more importantly, development planning and process in Nigeria. Mr. President, the existing development plans have been a top-down and a take or leave it approach, like it was done last week, where the government just announced we have new development plans. And many people are not even aware that someone was planning for them. Evidence shows that when people's aspirations drive policy, they are more effective and sustainable. The people must be originator, must be developer, executor of plans to ensure their full cooperation. When plans are handed down from above, the commitment and sense of belonging are usually lost. Such plans are bound to fail. This has been the major challenge of the Nigerian development plan. The current Lamborghini top-down development plan approach is rigid and lacks place awareness. To respond to local complexity, there is concern regarding the effectiveness of the top-down approach, as people without stake in the policy may engage in counterproductive behaviors such as optimism. No matter how good the plan is, they are doomed to fail whenever people feel alienated from it. There is a advantage for this too, and it's rendered it. That the drug that we never taken, we never appreciated. In a top-down approach, which fits into the Lamborghini development model, this is contrary to the cautions in the Yoruba adage again. You cannot shave my head in my absence. And Tina also have work to do. Said, no one can tell my story better than myself. Therefore, nobody can tell Nigeria's story than Nigeria. In the alternative, I suggest ÀJÀGBE-EJޮ model approach, which is a bottom-up approach, where every village, every town, locality, city, made to develop its own development plan, execute and finance the plan. They will finance it their own. The city plan, therefore, can be aggregated to form the community development plan. The community development plan can be aggregated to form local government development plans. The local government development plans can be aggregated to form the state development plan, which are then aggregated to form national development plan. In that case, everybody will be part of the plan. We know what is there in the local as well. Everybody will support it. It should not be streamed from each other. What is the point of that? Will be mass-oriented, address necessity, and accommodate all aspirations of the people. Since the people draw up the plans, they will readily fund it, and there will be no need for external funding. The ÀJÀGBE-EJޮ approach is therefore much responsive to diverse territorial needs. And moreover, none of what we are asking for in true federalism. Yes, of course. And this is illustration of what I'm saying. Based on studies, Nigeria has around 100,000 medium-sized cities and towns. If each of these cities were asked on their own to identify their problems, identify how it can be solved, and the government just coordinate this process without imposing on them, and whatever we get from these 100,000 cities, we then again summarize it to 774 local governments we have in the country. Because they are part of it, when they get to local government as well, and they summarize it, and then they accumulate this one to states, which will give us a 7 for Abuja development plans. And it again is summarized into the 6 zones that we have. And again, this 6 again now summarized to 1, and that's exactly what we call national development plan. To me, what you have now is just federal government development plans, not national development plans, because they never plan for people. Until we follow that approach, people will never buy in. People to project, you think it's good for them when you are producing. And that's why you see people asking you to pay them for you to even build roads in the street because it will not be what they need. That's why you drop electricity, solar energy in the street where someone will have light in his house and you think we will not destroy it and set it back. But if they are the one that ask for road, ask for electricity, education, seriously speaking, no thief can take it. Nothing will get missing. And that's the thing we have to do in this video. Lastly, Mr. Pan, I also of the belief that publishing in foreign journals will also be part of this Lamborghini in academic. The attempt to publish in foreign journals have killed local journals. When I joined Muibi, I used to remember the Colonial Journal of Administration. Where is it today? I used to remember Odus in Pakotova, where I did. This has also made many of our contributions of little relevance to local needs and development challenges. We need to balance desire to be ranked by foreign agencies and relevance to local needs. This can be achieved by developing our own metrics. We don't need to follow China, Hong Kong, Australia, Scotland, Spain, where we now make ourselves to force our papers to suit their needs just because we wanted to recognize them. Developing our parameters that can take cognizance of regional peculiarities, give credence to the popular saying, think global, but act locally. The necessity of relevance to local solutions should be the paramount reason why we publish non-global feasibility. Nigerian University Commission can also toe the line of South Africa by developing a set of national metrics that not only focuses on work present but local relevance as standard for rating and ranking country-based journals. These journals can be subsidized to ensure recovery and global competitiveness. Developing such ÀJàGBE-EJޮ framework for Nigerian journals will increase visibility, attract international recognition and patronage. Eventually, we increase global ranking and adoption. Distinguished guests and colleagues, the ÀJàGBE-EJȯ I'm advocating is never about choosing between new and old, traditional or modern, local or foreign, not necessarily about quantity over quality. ÀJàGBE-EJȯ model I'm proposing is the one that allows inclusiveness, where everybody will be part of some country. Gradualism that will take it bit by bit. We grew from Bole Kaja, then to go to Opofonloye before we go to Lamborghini. It's an approach that will all make us to look for methods to address our necessity or not about luxury. That hey, I'm the big man when we are suffering. And should be country specific. That only take care and be only relevant to the country where it's developed. And again, that will promote our common interest, not self-interest. More importantly, it's about that critical role of the state in a country like Nigeria, where we are not power enough to compete globally. And again, to avoid the evils of the market, where there are strong institutions, where there is no strong institution, to tame the excesses of these market players who take advantage of our weak negotiation power and exploit us. For the public sector, the fears of losing power is strong enough as incentives to the politician, no matter the policy system will approve. This is not so. Acknowledging I'm eternally grateful for this opportunity to present my inaugural lecture to serve in the superior capacity University of Lagos, the Deputy Mr. Ama, and other members of the management team. I thank you and the honor for your kindness and support towards my inaugural lecture. My sincere appreciation goes to the Dean of Professor Van and all other faculty, professors, and colleagues. Thank you. Also, my brother to my Professor Wakil Sala, and other members of my department, and also my inaugural committee led by Dr. Ade-Ajayi. I wish my father, the man of people, SAIBU is alive today. He planted the seed and watered the seedling, but he never enjoyed. But definitely the will of the Lord is our own. To my mother, Ade-Ajayi, you are many things to many people, but you are everything to me wherever you are, except being my God. You wish to be here, your spirit with me. The power of the old age has weakened your strength, but never your inner soul. I dedicate today's success to you. If not for your decision to stay and nurture my elder sister and brother, there will never have been Olufemi, Muibi, or SAIBU. So my siblings and brothers, you are all wonderful. Standing by me also, I say big thanks to you all. The journey to this day started about 43 years ago when I enrolled in Baptist Primary School in Sukrede local government of Oyo State. Despite my excellent outstanding results as the only science student and overall best student in the grammar school in 1987, the concept of ÀJàGBE-EJޮ has always resonated in my life. For 3 solid years, I was applying to my only dream and treasure Lamborghini University that I knew then, and that is the University of the University of Bedford Admission Prize. I rejected admission into microbiology in the University and higher school certificate in economics and mathematics at CMS Grammar School just because I wanted to be an engineer and architect. If I had taken that course, maybe also I would have attended the same school like this. Today, I'm now a professor of economics. Economics are dedicated to I want to be in a university where I dreamed and prayed for. If I had lost hope and I've said at least sought to faith, and I did wrong because I could not get my Lamborghini University and Lamborghini course. What will have become of me? Yet today, I've used alternative ÀJàGBE-EJޮ. Before then and now, many people are going to make us of the vehicle ÀJàGBE-EJȯ that convey me from the darkness of the village to the brightness of the city, giving me the opportunity to become the luxurious boss today that many others are riding smoothly to their greatness. I'm proudly grateful to my mummies because I have many, and like I ran it and Madam Amuta at the Ade-Ajayi for picking up from the village and bringing me to Lagos, pave the way for my education and to enjoy the ÀJàGBE-EJȯ school university. I've seen all members of the community and staff from Professorial University honoring me with their presence. Especially Professor Ademola Papayo, youth semester of recognition. It's not just the honor to me in academy. Not his support, not even support. He was instrumental to my being a lecturer and professor with a singular action to get me employed on July 30, 2021, when it was just a day to his leaving office as a student. All the 2 years, I was sitting assistant without pay in Department of Economics for him. He shared the salaries with 2 of us, myself and a little bit. And he took us as his son, clothe us, buy out clothes for us. And every festival, he give us stipend to give to our parents and buy ram for us in the year and to give our my support, your role and method also is appreciated. Thank you for being my MSc and PhD supervisor. And the foundation you did remain permanent in my life. I'm also grateful to all professors and lecturers from the Department of Economics, which are so many to mention, and appreciate your support. I also want to appreciate the staff of School of Economics in University of Johannesburg for giving the opportunity at least to have my postgraduate fellowship with them and the support they gave to me throughout that period. And my friend, the University of Ed, Professor Forget Ningiri Kapungura, and Professor Igide Stefanos for being a mentor and linkage for me. I also want to appreciate the Lagos State Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget under the title of Honorable Mr. Ibuku, our Permanent Secretary, Mr. Ade-Ajayi, as well as directors and heads of units in the ministry for their support and making their support. My special appreciation goes to the Clark Professional Assembly, my brother, my mentor, Architect Ojo, for the encouragement and support, and being a pillar I stood on in many occasions when I was challenged. I also want to appreciate my exam and the former Deputy Speaker on the House of Representatives, Engineer Latin. It's always an inspiration and motivation. You have been a great support and motivation for me and for many others from my community. I appreciate and feel honored by the presence and support of my fathers, mothers, please, people from my local community, can stand up for recognition. I appreciate you for coming. Alhaji Lekan Yusuf, and all of you, Alhaji Kola Yusuf, Alhaji Adigun, I thank you all for this opportunity. To all members of the local community in Lagos, are you around? Can you stand up? Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. And truly in the last one. My star appreciation goes to the Royal Majesty of Bakari, the way you of the sea. My spiritual leader, Chief Imam of Professorial University, and his wife, Dr. Mrs. Fanisi. Can you stand up for the recognition, man? Chief Imam and National Expert. And again, my community in Lagos, Chief Imam and ESCO of Ansarudin Society, Rakata. Please can you stand up for the recognition? Thank you for this. Local academies, local student union, development institutions, and many others to mention. I'm very grateful. My appreciation goes also to the University of Lagos Muslim community for the opportunity you give to me to lead and to lead in many areas of social and economic empowerment to those who are connected. To the head of my family, Alhaji Said Isaka Ignoraji and Chief Isa Raji, can you stand up? Okay, we are done. And to my in-laws, Alhaji Alamu, Olatunju, Church in Life, and brother Alhaji Kasim Olatunju. To the again, I can say for this, that it is good to have good in-law and bad wife, than to have a good wife and bad in-law. But I'm very lucky. I have a good wife and good in-law. I'm in a family it's because I have a good family, best in-law, and excellent wife. Yeah. I cannot be thank Almighty Allah for giving this privilege through my wife. I have to stand up. Can you stand up? Madam Bola, my wife, is submissive, obedient, faithful, and caring. I will you and I cherish dearly. You are so happy. You leader the storm with me, and you fought with me during those trying periods. You never looked back. You stood firm and straight, even when the pressure was so much on you. And God Abibulai, Alima, Abiba, Aziza, and to Wakeda, and Aliyah. to tell you, you are my joy. You are the source of my inspiration and feeling, and it's always a favor from Allah to have you. Today is not just only special in my life, but for my community. I'm the second professor from my town in Logo to deliver the vocal lecture in and then I took my inspiration as well to also do the same. And thank you for the leadership. Also, I want to appreciate especially my friend, Dr. Sikiru Adetokunbo.
SP. SP.
You speak to me every time there are times that I'm sicker than blood. Those who know us since then understand what I mean. I will never play with you, and I commit to cherish for my life and what you are doing in my life. Once again, I thank you for the privilege and opportunity. And to other members of the management, I also appreciate you for giving me the opportunity I'm here today. And to all the three guests, friends, I say big thank you for coming and listening. I wish everybody a safe journey home. Thank you. God bless you all. Please be seated. The Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, Professor Olufemi, Fellow of Academy of Science, who is unappointed absent. The Deputy Vice Chancellor of Academic and Research, Professor Olufemi, Fellow of Academy of Science. The Deputy Vice Chancellor of Development Services, Professor Ade-Ajayi. Both of whom are unavoidably absent at this event. And the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Management Services standing before you here, Professor Lucia Chukwu, representing the Vice Chancellor. The Registrar, Ade-Ajayi. The Bursar, Dr. Leko Laham. The University Librarian, Professor Yetunde Zai. The Provost of the College of Medicine, Professor David Ike. The Dean, Faculty of Social Science. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the press. Permit me to recognize a few of the guests who have come here to felicitate with the inaugural lecturer today. Let me start with His Royal Highness Oba Olukayode Raji, the weighing of Muibi. We also recognize the presence of Chief Kayode
media wrong. Professor Kabai, aka Mark. Professor Akim Bobola, all the way from Abangida University. Our own Professor Dade, who has retired victoriously from the University of Lagos. The President of Ilobu Development Union, Alhaji Dawuda Adeyemi, and the past President of the Ilobu Development Union, Alhaji Dr. Lekko Yusuf. Members of the Ansarudeen, Magada, Honorable Chairman of Boku Local Government Area, members of the Institute of Business Analysts of Nigeria, here present, Alhaji Raji Siaka, the Chief Imam of the Ibu community, the children of the inaugural lecture, Abibulai, Amida, Alima, Abiba, Aziza, and the love of the life of the inaugural lecture, Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it may also interest you to note that we have the Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, Professor Olufemi Ogundipe, as well as 260 members of staff and other guests participating in this inaugural lecture online. That goes to show you the top the inaugural lecture is made up of. Professor Olufemi SAIBU has presented his inaugural lecture titled Rethinking the Development Process in Nigeria, a choice between Lamborghini and ÀJÀGBE-EJޮ. The inaugural lecture revealed that the choice of his topic was premised on an economic perspective and a combination of three rich Yoruba adages. Ikoko, Idire, Ono.
Ikoko tó bá máa jata ìdí àgbo.
The second one. Ojú lásán ní àfi àìgbámọ́ lọ́wọ́ èwúrọ̀.
Ojú lásán kò ṣe ń gbọ́wọ́ lọ́wọ́ èkùrọ́.
It is a day that we remove the seed from oil palm shell. Also saying before you have done. And the last one. Eliti Ofeku.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. He who is not ready to die cannot be thrown as his father's successor. These three Yoruba magazines underpin his presentation today. He made dazzling examples by clarifying with some incidences that are quite personal to him. From the scenarios given, he posited that his mother, as an individual economic decision maker, and the government as policy makers have chosen ÀJÀGBE-EJޮ instead of LAMBORGHINI. So when the best is not affordable, the available can be made the best affordable. Hence, the choice between every decision and action has not only a cost, but many consequences. He exemplified Turkey with development lessons from China and Rwanda. China, which he said was struggling to survive and categorized as a less developed country, as at 1978, is currently competing shoulder to shoulder with the United States of America, who seem to be far ahead of China at that point in time. Relating the Chinese and Rwandan examples to Nigeria's development experience, the inaugural lecturer raised a fundamental question that underscored their success. How were they able to achieve their development plan? He then proposed that success here would be determined by the genuine resolve to get it right, the acceptance of the necessity for a positive change, and the readiness of all and sundry to embrace a fresh start. Despite the countless number of plans that have failed in Nigeria, he stated further that a number of reforms and deliberate change from the prevailing structure to a new one will uplift many citizens to a higher standard of living. With respect to the knowledge of trade, capital inflows, and development, the inaugural lecturer examined the implications of trade openness and capital inflows on economic growth, with a view to testing the modernization hypothesis in Nigeria. His contribution to this was to create a new index for capital inflow that captured the quantity and quality of the conventional measures of capital inflow and trade openness. He posited that trade alone would impact negatively on growth, and a combination of capital inflows and trade had significant impact on growth, thus providing empirical support for the modernization hypothesis that capital inflow and trade policy are complementary and growth enhancing. He therefore concluded that trade liberalization policies supported with capital inflow would promote higher economic growth in Nigeria. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that today's lecture has been excellently delivered. Professor Olufemi, Muibi, SAIBU. Now that you have successfully paid your academic debt with today's excellent inaugural lecture, with immense contributions on improving our world, on behalf of the Senate, you are hereby discharged and acquitted. I therefore welcome you to the Committee of Professors that have paid their dues. Congratulations. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all for coming, and I wish you safe return to your various destinations. I hereby declare this assembly closed.